I'm Celestine Vale, 34, and I help manage money for our family's hotel in Napa. My brother Lucian is loud, bold, and loves to show off. At the end-of-year party, he grabbed the microphone. Everyone, about 50 guests, was listening, sipping wine and eating fancy food. He shouted that Mom was giving him 35% of the hotel. He didn't mention me at all. People cheered. Champagne popped. Glasses clinked. Everyone toasted him like he had just won the biggest prize in the world. I stayed quiet. My hand held the remote, my thumb hovering over the button. I didn't move. Mom gave a tiny nod from the head table, like she had already made her choice in her head. My brother's grin stretched from ear to ear, daring me to clap and celebrate with him. I didn't clap. I smiled sweetly like the fancy Cabernet wine they were pouring, and asked, "Mom, should I tell them, or will you?" The room froze. Glasses stopped midair. Everyone stared. Conversation stopped. My brother's smirk disappeared. I clicked the remote once. The giant screen behind him lit up. One line, one number, enough to show the truth. The truth he did not want anyone to know. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? Late that night, the ballroom sparkled under the chandeliers. Shadows flickered across the velvet curtains. I walked slowly to the projector and slid the USB into its slot. The screen flickered to life, casting cold light over all the tables. Everyone's eyes turned to veil the glowing screen. The first slide hit hard. Bank debt $7 million. The full contract appeared on the screen, signed 18 months ago. Dad's neat block letters were at the bottom. Mom's fancy, flowing handwriting curved beside it, promising something that never happened. A sharp intake of breath swept through the room. People turned their heads. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. I clicked to the next slide. It showed cumulative losses of $2.2 million. A clean bar chart showed that only 42% of rooms were booked over 12 months. The new wings, which were supposed to save the hotel and make money, were empty. Hallways meant for luxury echoed with empty housekeeping carts. The numbers were undeniable. Aunt Seraphine, the head accountant who had been managing the hotel's ledgers for 20 years, stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "I warned you back in July," she said firmly, her voice calm but firm. "I gave Mom detailed reports. She told me to hide them until the new wing made money. But it never did." She looked directly at Mom without blinking. Lucian charged down the aisle, pushing past relatives. "You made this up," he shouted. His voice shook like he was scared deep inside. I stayed calm. I zoomed the contract on the screen until Mom's signature filled it. "Does that look familiar?" I asked her. Mom gripped the tablecloth, bunching it under her fingers. Her eyes darted side to side, looking for a way out. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. Dad sat hunched over, staring at the floor like it might swallow him. People around the room started whispering. A businessman at table 5 muttered under his breath and took out his phone to snap photos. The staff carrying trays froze. An elderly couple looked shocked. Lucian tried to pull the projector cable to shut the screen off. "Show it's fake," he shouted. He froze, fingers hanging in the air. Aunt Seraphine stood firm, arms crossed, looking powerful and serious. Mom glanced at me briefly, then bowed her head. No words came out of her mouth. The room grew tense. Chairs creaked as people shifted uneasily. Glasses clinked nervously. A server dropped a spoon, the metallic ring echoing like a gunshot. Phones buzzed with messages. Investors scribbled notes. The hotel staff huddled together, their faces pale and scared. Lucian took a step back, sweat streaming down his face. I shut down the projector myself. The proof had reached everyone's eyes. Lucian's face turned red. He gripped the podium so tightly his knuckles went white. His chest rose and fell quickly, like he couldn't breathe. Before he could say another word, his girlfriend, Maris, jumped to her feet. Her red dress shone under the chandeliers. "I'm not carrying $7 million of debt for your family," she shouted. Her words were sharp, like a knife cutting the air. She ran to veil the door, bag clutched under her arm. Lucian tried to follow, shouting, "Wait, let me explain." But she didn't stop. The doors swung shut behind her. Her perfume lingered in the air, sweet and sharp at the same time. Grandpa Alaric, 83, the man who built this hotel from a single vineyard, stood up slowly. He slammed his cane on the floor. "Quincy Vale, you're killing my 50-year legacy," he shouted at Dad. Mom bowed her head immediately. Grandpa's eyes were full of anger and disappointment. Octavian, one of the investors, stood as well. "I'm taking my $3 million out at dawn," he said, his voice flat and serious. "If we don't get answers tonight, all my partners are leaving too." The room went silent. Other investors nodded and opened documents to check the numbers. People whispered nervously. Aunts clutched their pearl necklaces. Uncles scrolled through glowing email screens. Longtime employees covered their mouths, trying not to cry. Board members formed small circles and debated quietly. Dad tried to rise, trying to explain himself, but Grandpa slammed his cane on the floor again. Everyone stayed silent. Maris's chair rocked slightly from her abrupt departure. Lucian's blazer was left on the chair, his tie hanging loose like a noose. The champagne glass beside it fizzed weakly, bubbles rising and popping in defeat. Octavian buttoned his coat, ready to leave. Mom stayed bowed, still like a statue full of regret. The whole room was tense, heavy with worry and fear. Phones buzzed with urgent messages to lawyers and accountants. I thought back 5 months earlier. The conference room on the hotel's 3rd floor was bright, with sunlight pouring through huge windows, showing endless rows of grapevines. Mom and Dad sat at the far side of the polished mahogany table. A big stack of contracts was in the middle, like a loaded weapon waiting to go off. "Your personal guarantee is required," Mom said, calm and practiced, pushing the top document to veil me. $7 million was needed to finish the tower addition of the hotel. "The bank will not approve this loan without it. It's standard procedure for family-owned businesses." Dad leaned for veil, uncapping his Mont Blanc pen. "Celestine, your profile helps get this approved. Without it, construction stops. Jobs vanish. Growth dies," he said. I remembered thinking how unfair it was. They were asking me to take on all this risk, while Lucian bragged about getting 35% of the hotel. It wasn't just about money. It was about truth, fairness, and the legacy of our family. Back in the ballroom, the tension was thick. Guests whispered among themselves. The staff looked pale and worried. Phones buzzed with urgent messages. The once celebratory party had turned into a scene full of fear, betrayal, and questions. Everyone was waiting for someone to say something, but no one knew what to say. Lucian's face turned redder. He gripped the podium again, trembling. "You're lying, Celestine. This isn't true," he shouted, but his voice shook. Aunt Seraphine stepped closer, calm and serious. "It's all true," she said firmly. She showed the reports she had been keeping. Mom looked at her, then bowed her head, too ashamed to look up. Grandpa Alaric's eyes were like fire. "Do you understand what you've done?" he shouted at Dad. "This is my life's work. My hotel. My dream. And you've put it all at risk." People started whispering about their own money. Investors checked their documents again, nodding grimly. Staff huddled in corners, unsure if they would still have jobs. Guests watched in horror, unable to believe what was happening. The whole ballroom was tense, like a storm about to break. Maris's sudden exit had changed everything. Lucian's confidence vanished. His plans crumbled in front of everyone. The smell of fancy food and champagne could not hide the panic in the room. Phones buzzed, whispers spread, and everyone was thinking about the future. Grandpa Alaric adjusted his cufflinks and sat back down, still angry but trying to regain control. Octavian, the investor, paused at the door, ready to leave with his $3 million. Mom remained bowed, full of shame and regret. Dad tried to speak but stayed silent, trapped by Grandpa's gaze. I looked around the room, seeing the fear and shock on everyone's faces. The party was over. The hotel, our family, and our legacy were all on the line. And now, everyone knows the truth. The night was long, full of whispers, tense glances, and urgent phone calls. Staff wondered if they would still get paid. Guests worried about the hotel's future. Investors prepared to leave. The ballroom, once filled with laughter and music, now held nothing but tension and the heavy weight of secrets finally revealed. And through it all, I stood calm, holding the remote, knowing the truth was finally out. My brother's lies were exposed. Mom's decisions were questioned. Dad's mistakes were clear. And the legacy of our family hotel rested in the hands of everyone in that room. The story of that night would never be forgotten. The big screen, the slides, the numbers, the whispers, they would stay in everyone's memory. And I knew one thing. I had done what was right. Their faces looked very confident and smart. It was the kind of confidence that made you think they could make anyone agree to anything. They smiled, spoke clearly, and made their ideas sound so perfect that it felt impossible to say no. I looked carefully at the papers on the table. At first, the numbers and charts seemed exciting. It looked like a big adventure, like something that could make me very rich very fast. My heart beat faster just thinking about it. But as I read more, I noticed strange things. There were clauses, rules, and conditions that could take away everything I had. My money, my house, the things I had built all by myself. It was all at risk. I felt a cold shiver down my spine. Later that night, I was sitting in my office, the lights soft, the city quiet outside my window. My assistant, Eamon, came in quietly. She had a small, thin folder in her hand, and her eyes looked worried. "I found this on the computer," she whispered. She carefully spread out the papers on my desk. Each sheet made my stomach tighten. The bills from the vendors didn't match the dates when the work was done. Emails had times that didn't make sense. Some costs were made higher in strange ways, using smaller subcontractors that nobody usually noticed. Eamon had even found that millions of dollars were moved around months before the final permits were finished. It all looked like a carefully hidden trap. My mind raced as I read. We quickly put together all the proof and emailed it to our lawyer. 2 days later, the reply came. It was exactly what we feared. Some invoices were completely fake. The loan we were thinking about was already failing. I went back to the meeting room the next morning. The contract was still on the table, waiting for my signature. I pushed the papers across the table. "I'm not doing this," I said firmly. "This is going to fail. This is not safe. It's too risky." My dad's face changed. His usually calm expression darkened instantly. "You don't love your brother," he said, his voice rising. "Western's future depends on this expansion. If you say no, you will ruin him." Mom spoke softly. She tried to calm the room. "Families stick together," she said gently. "That's the rule." Lucian, my brother, believed their story completely. At fancy dinners and meetings over the next few weeks, he swallowed everything they told him. He got 35% of the shares in my name without any problems at all. He ignored all the updates I sent about how the business was actually running. He didn't even open the finance alerts I sent. Instead, he trusted charm and smiles over the real numbers. He signed the papers that were ready for him without even checking the ones that required my signature. Refusing to sign made my heart ache. I felt guilty because I loved my brother. But saying yes would mean tying my future to a disaster that I knew was coming. I decided to be honest and not take part in the lies. That night, everything started to go wrong very quickly. Octavian, one of the other family members, stormed into the hotel lobby. His briefcase wheels rolled loudly across the shiny marble floor, making a sharp sound that echoed through the room. He went straight to the front desk, pulled out a form from his jacket pocket, and signed it for $3 million right away. His pen scratched loudly on the paper as he did it. Then he quickly took a photo of the signed paper and sent it to our lawyer, Corin, before leaving. Almost immediately, the bank froze half of the company's accounts. Computers and payment machines stopped working. Guests trying to pay for their rooms couldn't do it. A family trying to pay $200 extra for small charges found their card declined 3 times. A businessman slammed his platinum card on the counter and demanded help. Phones came out, recording the chaos. One woman even went live on social media, showing the hotel couldn't take money. The video quickly got thousands of views. The hotel was famous, but now everyone could see that things were going terribly wrong. Dad called an emergency meeting in the office. He told the IT manager to fix the freeze, but the bank's rules said it couldn't be undone without board approval. Mom tried calling the bank herself, but no one answered. Staff had to print paper receipts by hand. The ink smudged in the sweaty palms of the clerks. Luggage started to pile up. Guests were frustrated. Some shouted. Children cried. A honeymoon couple asked for a full refund, but there was no cash to give. Security tried to help them at the ATM, but the machines showed insufficient funds. Night shift employees watched the chaos. Housekeepers whispered in the laundry room, worried that their paychecks might bounce. Bellhops left their posts in a hurry, uniforms half unbuttoned. By midnight, 10 employees had already submitted their resignations through the company app. Each digital signature was like a small earthquake, shaking the hotel from the inside. The lobby, once full of cheerful chatter and clinking glasses, was now full of anger, confusion, and fear. People rolled their suitcases through crowded aisles, shouting and arguing. Phones recorded the frustration and shared it online. The once luxury hotel felt empty and chaotic. A week later, Eamon sent me a photo of the hotel gate. The iron bars were chained shut, and a new sign said temporarily closed for renovations. No guests were around. The valet stood idly, keys dangling from empty boards. The parking lot, usually packed with shiny cars, held only a few employee vehicles gathering dust. Dad had to send an email to fire many of the staff. He typed it from his home office, staring at the screen. He calculated severance, 2 weeks of pay, but no benefits. At 9:03 a.m., he finally hit send. Phones all over town went off. Employees received the notice while grocery shopping, during job interviews, and even while driving. Reservations were canceled. The website crashed from the sudden number of people trying to check. Brides-to-be screamed into voicemail boxes. Travel agents and executives called, looking for other hotels. Eamon sent screenshots showing the destruction and panic. A concierge cried while reading the email aloud. A cook dropped his apron, tears spilling on the stainless steel table. A maid clutched her phone and cried. 10 years of service were reduced to a PDF on a computer screen. The once bustling lobby was now silent except for the footsteps of a skeleton crew. Dust-covered chandeliers. Champagne flutes were packed in crates. Delivery trucks with food were turned away at the gate. Produce sat in the California sun and began to rot. Social media exploded with photos of the closure. Hashtags made the hotel trend, but not for a good reason. People called it a disaster. Dad sat at his desk, staring at the screen, feeling helpless. The vineyard view outside his window, which used to make him proud, now mocked him with its quiet beauty. Phones rang without answer. Voicemails piled up. The website said updates would come soon, but no one believed it. 3 long months of legal battles followed. Depositions piled up in fluorescent-lit conference rooms across the valley. Lawyers argued over papers and evidence. The stress was constant, like a heavy weight pressing down on everyone. Finally, the auction happened. Under the bright lights of the county hall, the auctioneer's gavel fell. The hotel sold for $3.8 million. The bidders left quickly. The crowd dispersed silently, still shocked by how fast everything had collapsed. The empire we had worked to build was gone. Even after the sale, the memories of that chaos lingered. Employees remembered the night the computers stopped, the children who cried, the guests who shouted, and the smell of dust covering once luxury items. Every detail was burned into our minds. Through it all, I thought about the choices I had made. Choosing honesty has been difficult. I had felt guilt and sadness for saying no, especially for my brother. But I also knew that going along with the lies would have been far worse. My future was safe, and even though the hotel had failed, I could still rebuild, learn, and grow from the experience. Eamon stayed by my side through all of it. Her support was steady, reliable. She reminded me that truth was more important than comfort, and that even though the storm was scary, it had passed, leaving lessons we could carry for Vale. Looking back, I realized how fragile everything had been. The hotel empire, the family loyalty, the trust, all could be destroyed in a single night. But choices, even hard ones, shaped the future. I had chosen honesty, and that gave me a strange kind of peace, even amid chaos. The hotel, once full of laughter, clinking glasses, and happy faces, was now silent and empty. Dust covered the chandeliers. The once green lawns grew wild. The delivery trucks no longer came. Produce rotted in the sun. Social media buzzed with the story of the closure. Employees scattered. Guests complained. Brides-to-be cried. Travel agents called. The empire was gone, sold for $3.8 million. And yet, even as the hotel crumbled, I knew the lessons we learned would last. Honesty mattered. Choosing what was right over what was easy mattered. Family loyalty could be complicated. And money, no matter how much, could never replace integrity. I took a deep breath and looked out the window at the quiet vineyard. The sun shone, birds chirped, and life went on. The storm had passed. We had survived, and we could start again. The main bank took all the money, leaving a huge hole of $3.2 million after paying lawyer fees, back taxes, and other debts. The other people who were owed money looked at what little was left and took whatever they could. Most of the family's things had only existed on old papers that showed money that wasn't really there. The company that once seemed so strong was now just empty offices and old files. Mom asked for a divorce the same week the papers went to Dad's office. Dad's office was now empty, with half-packed boxes, old pictures, and memories scattered everywhere. The family court judge divided the little that was left. Mom got the downtown condo, even though the monthly payments were very high and hard to manage. Dad got his old Jaguar, which was now parked under a protective tarp in a rented storage unit. No one got money from the other, and there were no shared bank accounts left. Everything was finished on paper, but in real life, it felt very sad and empty. Mom moved out before the last papers were signed. Her things were packed in boxes with her writing on them in Sharpie, telling movers where everything should go. Dad, Lucian, drifted from one short-term job to another. His sales skills didn't work anymore because he could not use the family name anymore. He finally rented a small one-bedroom apartment in Oakland. The walls were so thin he could hear his neighbors arguing every night. Every little noise, even the sounds from outside, felt louder than before. His resume still said he was a hospitality executive, but he only worked as a barista at a cafe to pay for rent and a few bills. The 35% share he had been promised in the family business disappeared completely when everything was sold. All the promises he had been given turned into nothing. All the assurances and plans for the future vanished like smoke in the wind. Then, a letter arrived at my temporary address. Grandpa's shaky handwriting was on the envelope in faded blue ink. Inside was a single handwritten page. It said, "Celestine, your courage saved me from total shame and ruin. You told the truth, and that saved the little honor our name has. Thank you for carrying the hardest part." In the letter was also a pressed vineyard leaf that still smelled faintly like the earth and old grape harvests. The leaf was dry, fragile, and beautiful, and it reminded me of the time when the family vineyard was full of life, sunlight, and the sweet smell of grapes ready to pick. Court papers showed the family business falling apart. Mom's testimony in court avoided looking at the lawyer directly. Dad's voice shook when he answered questions. Lucian skipped the final court hearing, saying he was stuck in traffic in a vague text. Everything that had once been solid was now uncertain, confusing, and sad. The hotel, which used to be grand with shiny marble floors, was now under new ownership. Tourists came in to take pictures of the lobby and the old staircases, which we thought would always be ours. Grandpa's letter stayed on my kitchen counter for weeks. I read it many times until the paper got soft and the ink began to smudge. The money problems weighed on both Mom and Dad, like a heavy loan that never ended. Lucian stopped talking after his first angry messages. The big family business that had once been important was now just old files in a cabinet, officially gone. Every memory of it now seemed like a story from someone else's life. I waited 2 weeks before finally blocking Mom's phone number. I kept my thumb hovering over the icon, but I never called. The last shares of the company I had went to a venture capital group quietly, giving me a clean payout. I started a new job as a financial analyst at a startup in San Francisco. Every day I rode over the Bay Bridge, slowly replacing the memory of vineyards with tall buildings, shiny glass, and the busy city life. At night, in my small new studio, memories of family dinners came back. I remembered Mom's secret recipes for a buco and the childhood games we played. I felt guilty sometimes, wondering if I had left my family behind. But every lie I had seen, every hidden debt, made me stronger. I decided not to fix their mistakes anymore. Lucian's angry messages stacked up unread. I deleted the newest ones without reading them. Family is not a reason to lie. Silence is better than helping lies. The truth is freedom. From the Bay Bridge on clear evenings, I looked south to veil the Napa Hills, where the vineyards used to be. They became just a blurry memory in the golden sunset. The house sale finished in 45 days. The money went straight to my account, untouched by old debts. My first paycheck from the new job felt light, because no one else's mistakes were part of it. My coworkers asked about my weekend. I talked about hikes in Marin, not vineyards. At work, numbers were honest, they didn't lie. Mom called once more through a cousin, asking for coffee to talk. I let it go unanswered. Lucian posted photos on social media from bars, hinting that I betrayed him. People stopped following him. I scrolled past, unfollowed, and moved on. Grandpa's vineyard leaf stayed in my planner as a reminder. The startup gave me a chance to grow. Every morning, the San Francisco fog cleaned the city. Napa became a distant memory, like a postcard. Beautiful, far away, not home anymore. I learned a lesson. Loyalty without honesty is like chains. I ran along the Embarcadero at night, lungs burning, feeling free. The bridge lights twinkled, guiding me for Vail. I had lost a lot, but I had gained freedom, and that gave me space to breathe and live. Sometimes I thought about Dad, sitting in that small Jaguar in a storage unit, alone. Sometimes I thought about Mom, making her condo feel like home, even though it was expensive and hard to pay for. I thought about the old hotel, the vineyards, and Grandpa's warm smile when he handed me that letter. I remembered everything. The city skyline looked different every morning. I watched the sun rise over the Bay Bridge, painting the water gold. Every day, I worked hard at my new job, learning new things, making real money honestly. I met new people, some kind and some funny. I remembered old family traditions, but also felt proud of myself for making my own path. Evenings were quiet. I cooked my own food, sometimes thinking about Mom's abuco, sometimes trying new recipes. I ran along the Embarcadero, feeling the wind and the freedom of not being tied down by lies or family secrets. Each step made me stronger. Each breath felt clean and new. The vineyard leaf in my planner stayed pressed between pages, a reminder of what had been lost, but also of what I had learned. Truth mattered more than comfort. Freedom mattered more than family chains. And even though Napa was far away now, the lessons stayed with me. I had survived the fall, the lies, the anger, and the heartbreak. I had survived, and I was moving for Vale. The city lights reflected on the water at night, and I knew that I could make a life for myself, honest and true. I would never forget the past, but I would not let it control me. Each morning I woke up ready to work, to learn, to live. The bridge lights twinkled, guiding me, and I ran to Vale, a future that was mine, free and real.